Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director of Event Programming at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women brand marketers today. And with me is Beth Hardy. She is the VP of Marketing at Modern Market Eatery. Welcome, Beth. Hi.
Thank you, Lisa. Happy to be here.
Yeah, no, happy to have you. So I love all the little plants in the background. I have to ask, are they real or
They're
faux?
real. They're real. Yes. Yeah. So this little one behind me started off very small on my husband's desk
Oh, very
years
nice.
ago, and it's grown into a tree. So happy to have it, behind me during my day.
Yeah, well, be careful of that because my mom rused the day my father came back when he retired from his office and brought his little tree, and it has since keeps growing and growing. And she's always like, I am throwing this thing away. It just like is invading the household. So, but it's his baby. It's like, no way. She'll have to leave before the tree goes.
Same. It's been with us through several moves. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least yours is more manageable than the monstrosity that we have at well, that my parents have at their home. But well, anyway, I love as I always tell everyone, I snoop and find out different things about them. So I was doing some research and found an article which is more about strategy and what you guys do, to sort of use social media for kind of a peek behind the curtain and how the food is made and the recipes. But I want to sort of take that and ask for a peek behind the curtain of that. And so, what would it, if we kind of look behind the curtain or behind the counter, as you say, for modern market, what would we find that maybe, or what do people find that maybe they'd be surprised to hear about?
Yeah. Well, on a personal note, it might not be very surprising given that I work for a restaurant, but I do love to cook. And that's something that is a big part of who I am. And not just the cooking, but it's sort of the meal planning and preparation that is all part of it for me that I really enjoy. Every Friday night or Saturday morning, I sit down and I kind of prepare, like, what are we going to do for the week? Get my grocery list going. I love going to the grocery store. There's something about it that's just really enjoyable, up and down the aisles, all the different food options, and then, getting to prepare the food throughout the week. So that's something that it was actually a nice transition. When I began working for restaurants, it sort of went really well with my interest in food, and we're a big foodie family. So that's something on the personal side that is kind of a peek behind the counter.
Hmm.
On the professional side, it's sort of interesting. I was thinking about this earlier, but I try not to ask my team to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. We're a small team, we're a small brand, still regional brand. And so there's a lot of things I do that are quite hands-on still. We, for example, this summer attended some events at Red Rocks Theater here in Colorado. And again, it was awareness driving, local marketing driving. And I was at every single one of them with the team, handing out cookies and lemonades and talking about modern market. And they kept telling me, you don't have to be here if you don't want to. But I said, I wouldn't ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And so I'm here with you. We're here as a team. And, we're going to do this together. So that's sort of the way I think about that a little bit, but sort of gives you a peek behind sort of who I am, I guess, on the professional side.
Well, and that's kind of, I mean, I would think in terms of it's as a leader, there are certain types of leaders. And I think you're almost, it sounds like do as not do as I do. I don't mean it in that sense, but just you want to show by example, by being a part of it. And, and you have the luxury, as you said, you're a regional brand. Perhaps if you were more national and maybe you wouldn't have that kind of time. But I assume, and I could be wrong, but even if that were the case, you might still want to do things by example. I don't know. Does that seem to describe you?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, yeah. That was just one example of something that we did this past summer, but that's absolutely the case. I think that it helps so much to be able to show instead of show and do instead of just tell the team, and be able to set an example and lead by example. And that's definitely a lot of who I am.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, I'm looking at your career path, and you did start as an editor of a magazine, but then you went over to more to the PR side of things, agencies, before you then crossed over to, I believe, Garbanza Mediterranean, and then continued on that food path with, Modern Market. Talk about that when you were first starting out. Did you know that, I mean, it's being even an editor of a magazine, you're still on that. It's not PR necessarily, but it's the other side of it. So I think they do have a lot of, skill sets that cross over. But was that your plan, or did you even have a plan? Or talk about that when you first starting out, and then how your career evolved to where it is today.
Yeah, I don't think I ever could have imagined where I'd be now back when I was, 19, 20 years old, 2021, and just kind of starting out. But I majored in print communications, thinking that I wanted to go into magazine writing. And so I did that pretty briefly and realized that my writing style just was a bit more factual, a little bit more on the PR side than it was on the editorial side. So I then began working for a communications agency, and that's really where I think I found my wings, and I realized that this is something I love to do. We had all kinds of clients, which is great. I always encourage a lot of people to work at agencies first if they can, given that you can dip your toe in so many other industries, and kind of figure out where you like to be. But we had clients that were healthcare related, professional sporting events, book launch, restaurants. And so I got to experience lots of different industries, see what I really like to do. And I did. I worked my way through 4 different agencies. So began in PR, and then that was around the time that around the recession. And so lots of agencies were consolidating. And so some of them were bringing in marketing and advertising. And that same thing happened to the agencies I was with. We maybe started out as a PR agency, but began doing lots of other things as the years went on. And so I got a chance to, again, do more than just PR and see that I really enjoyed it. And then one of my clients was Garbanzo Mediterranean Grill. That's after I had moved to Colorado. And I just, again, my love of food seemed to really resonate, I think, with the work I was doing. And they brought me in-house and never looked back since. I enjoyed my time on the agency side, but I love the client side even more. And also the fact that you can just focus on one brand and you can get to know that brand really closely. I think for me, working for agencies, you get to see a bit of it. You get to see just a small portion of that business. You don't necessarily get to see the full in-depth look. And that's what I liked about being able to work in-house. So began working for them in 2011, and then moved over to Modern Market in 2014. And have really helped grow Modern Market's marketing department. We didn't really have a marketing department when I started. I kind of joked that it was one of our founders posting on Facebook every once in a while, and that was about it, back then. And now we have a full department, and we've seen a lot of growth over the years.
Yeah. Now, well, I guess a couple of questions out of that. One, when you talked about a little bit what you would recommend for anyone starting out who wants to be in this industry to maybe start on the agency side, because it does give you that peek into everything, like all the different industries and different positions within the company, within the agency. But so if you were to talk to someone just starting out, and they could be just looking for a career change, or it could be someone right out of school, what would you advise them, maybe that you wish that you had been given that kind of advice as you're trying to, especially now agencies, as you said, are combining a lot. It's a larger agency, you don't necessarily get to do as much, but you have that on the resume. Or is it better to get in and be doing everything? Or is there any advice that you would give to someone just starting out or getting in this industry at least?
Yeah, I'd say a couple different things I often tell our interns is try a lot of different things, different industries, different areas of your interest. So it could be marketing or advertising, digital advertising, potentially PR. If you have the opportunity, just always volunteer, raise your hand to be able to get that exposure and that experience. And then also I tell them volunteering. So sometimes I think a lot of students, from what I've seen, feel like they're pigeonholed into whatever they majored in, or that one area of focus that they happen to be interning in, but they're interested in something else. Maybe that's still within the industry, but not necessarily exactly what they're doing now. And I say volunteer. Find an organization that you find interesting, get on their communications or advertising or marketing committee, and
Mhm.
then volunteer to do the type of thing that you're interested in doing. And that's a great way to get that experience, put it on your resume, because you don't necessarily always get paid to do the things that you want to do, but maybe you can volunteer and get that experience and that exposure that way. And then that can parlay you into your next job if you really want to do something different than what you're doing. And I've seen that work quite well with some people. A former colleague of mine was working in one area of our business, and she wanted to get into marketing. And I kept saying, volunteer. That's
Mhm.
the best way you can do it, because we wouldn't have you as an intern right now because you're not in school and you've been working for several years, but you want to get into marketing, volunteer, and then that's something you can put on your resume that's just going to show prospective employers that you're really interested and serious.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point in the sense of someone, as you said, it's a colleague who had been making a certain amount of salary, has a certain position, they're at a certain level. They're not at an intern level. It's not something where people might feel comfortable. Hey, you're going to be bored, or, we can't afford you. Or so by volunteering and then getting that experience. So it's not a training situation. It's yes, I'm at maybe not a senior level just based on, but you're at a level where they can bring you in comfortably and not think of you as that intern or that person that, we have to worry about giving them a salary or being, overseeing them kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes. That's right.
Well, the second part of that was because you talked about when you joined Modern Market and it was, there was nothing, you created the marketing. I'm curious, is that something like being part of a startup, and not that it was a startup at the time, but your position at Modern Market was a startup type of thing where you had to sort of take from scratch and mold it or build it, or it's your baby in a sense. Is that exciting to you to be able to do that? I'm sure it was at the time, but is that something that you sort of look to do, or did it just kind of happen? And talk about that.
Yeah, it's something I was looking for. I think, prior to Modern Market, I was with Garbanzo, and a very similar environment, a bit of a startup environment, young brand. And I happen to really enjoy that. I happen to be able to see or enjoy seeing a company grow. You mentioned it being your baby, and that's very much the way I feel. I think all of us feel like that about Modern Market
Mhm.
on the leadership team, because we've all been with the company for many, many years. And we've seen it grow a lot. And there's a sense of pride that comes with that. There's a sense of knowing that, yes, that mark that I left on the brand is still there from years ago. It always will be, because it's something that I started. And there's just, I think anybody would feel that sense of ownership and pride when you're able to start off with a company so young and be able to really mold it and make those changes that you want to make. So yeah, it's something that's been a part of me for a long time. I've typically worked for small to mid-size companies over the years, and you just have to have that owner mentality to
Mhm.
be able to take on something like that. But as we grow, I've also really enjoyed the fruits of our labor over the years, and then being able to experience, some of the benefits that come along with being a bit of a bigger brand or being part of a bigger platform.
Yeah.
So there's pluses to all of it, but I think that there's nothing I think that can change that sense of being able to grow something from nothing.
Yeah. And I think what you said in terms of mentality, but it's that startup mentality. I think a lot of people, and it's not necessarily that they want to start their own business, but you can still have a startup mentality and, go into a smaller brand, or like, so I think there are some people who, even you see some people who are working for, really big corporations, but they still have that kind of startup mentality. And that's how they look at everything. And I think it's a certain type of marketer, a certain type of business person who wants to do that and sort of create something from scratch.
Exactly. Definitely a certain type of person for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious though, through all of that, is just in your paths, in your career, on a personal level, was there ever a challenge or something that came up that was really sort of daunting to you? That maybe it was like, okay, am I in the right business, or how can I get through this, or whatever it may be. That sort of, and as I said, not more in the okay, this strategy isn't working, but more just for you. And whether, and it could be something personal that impacted, your career, or it could be a career decision or some, whatever it may be, but something that really stands out to you that you had to really, take a pause and then move forward.
Yes. So yeah, early on in my career, I had quite a challenging 2007. And it really shaped who I was and how I approach life and work. So in late 2006, my boss came to me. She was the owner of the agency that I was working for, and let me know that she had leukemia. She was diagnosed with leukemia. And the type of leukemia that she had to go into the hospital. She couldn't have treatments from home. And so she had to give up her business. And so she asked me if I would take over several of our largest clients. At the same time, my father was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Oh my God.
So it was a lot all at once. And I was planning on moving to Colorado. So in 2007, I was going to move with my husband out to Colorado. We were living in North Carolina at the time. And so we had these big plans to sort of make this life change and a bit of a career change. But my boss was a major mentor of mine, and I would have done anything for her. And so I reevaluated and I said, I'm going to stay in North Carolina. I'm going to take on her clients for a year, and I'm going to help my parents with my dad's treatment.
Mhm.
So I worked out of my parents' house so I could be with my dad during the day. My mom went to work, and worked with our clients in the hopes of being able to hand them back to my boss when she recovered. And thankfully, she recovered and I was able to hand them back to her. But that year, that 2007, was extremely challenging. We went from an agency, so we had some support, to it being just me. And, on top of just the desire to be able to hand these clients back to her in a very, I wanted them to be successful and healthy and, vibrant clients when I get them back to her. So there was, a lot of that was going on throughout the year. But thankfully everything worked out, and was able to do that and hand them back, and then moved to Colorado and sort of started a different chapter in my career. But I learned a lot about myself that year. I learned a lot about what I wanted to do. And you also learn a lot about what's important and what's not. I think that it's really easy to overthink and to stress, and there's always going to happen. There's always going to be that side of there's always going to be stressors in your life and in your work, but it puts things in perspective for sure. And I also learned, I can do a lot of my own, started my own business for a year, and that's not something I was expecting to do in my late 20s.
Mhm.
But I grew a lot from that, and I learned a lot from it.
Wow, that's wonderful that you were there for both your parents and your boss that way. Um, so it's, but I think just a big part of that is you were ready to uproot yourself, you and your husband, and that itself is a huge stressor. I would, like I've moved a lot, so I've gotten kind of used to it. But in general, even someone who has done that a lot, it's still that just before the sadness or the leaving or the start, whatever it is. So you're going through all that, and then you're hit with these things. So I just think that that's amazing that you really stepped up for them. But I'm curious, you said it changed you a bit, and so how did you then take that with you to when you were ready to start again in Colorado, and move on, and in terms of prioritizing, even the kind of job you were looking for, or where you were working, or what you were doing, and what were the biggest impacts, I guess.
Yeah. So, we moved out to Colorado. I didn't have a job. It was one of those things where I just took a leap of faith. And I knew that I would find the right fit. And so, and I did. And I think, what I learned from that experience was taking those leaps of faith. I'm typically a more cautious person. I'm typically an overthinker, a planner. And this was a giant leap of faith. And it it helped me, that experience over that year helped me realize that life is short. You have to take those leaps of faith.
Mhm.
You can't settle. And that's kind of the mindset I had when I moved to Colorado. And, I applied for lots of different jobs, and I sort of took on that no fear mentality of, I think sometimes a lot of women will not apply to certain jobs because they don't see that they fit at 100% the job description. And I tried to throw that out the window and just apply for everything that seemed interesting to me and seemed to be a good fit. And I really then ended up finding my place in Colorado that way. I joined PRSA and just sort of took a lot of those steps that I think would may have been something I might not have done if I had never had that experience, or just had that, again, sort of fearless mentality in moving to a new state, moving across the country. And I've tried to keep that with me over the years of understanding, life is short, no need to stress about this, no need to worry, just take that leap, and the right opportunity will be there.
Well, and I mean, just you can have the best laid plans and then they're
Change.
done, it changes. And so if you have to always have that plan, and then as you just talked about, it can change. And so why take that effort then? Like, I'm not saying you don't think and do things and just do whatever, but I don't know, why not just jump in? And I've talked with other women about this, that women especially tend to say, I'm not going to apply for this job because I don't check all the requirements. And actually, it's not just, I guess there have been tests. That woman I was just speaking with for an earlier episode, she was saying how there was even test studies that's not just about women, but it's minorities, people of color. They tend to sort of hold back and sort of say, okay, I can't do this necessarily because I don't have this experience and fit everything. So I do think, like, so someone who can't comes to you with that kind of advice, should it be about, okay, not necessarily checking the boxes, but how would you advise them to get them to feel comfortable or confident enough to say, you know what, just go for it?
Yeah. I would advise them to think about the job itself as a whole. It's like, yes, you might not check every box, but do you feel that you have the experience that can fill in those gaps? And I think that's so important. When I do interviews with candidates for job openings that we have, not everybody has 100% of the experience. So I always kind of want to understand what can you bring that would fill in this gap here? Where is your knowledge base? Can you think outside of what you do currently know to try and fill that gap? So, and it's just really, I think some of it's mentality, the way people think about things. It kind of goes back to that entrepreneurial spirit of, does somebody have that thought process to be able to say, I might not know exactly how to fill in this job description, but this is what I think would work. This is how I think we could do it. So I think we could accomplish this goal. And if they're right, then that's all I need to know. If they're going down the right path, that's important to me. So I think that, I would give the advice of think outside the box a little bit. Don't be too concerned that you don't have that exact experience, but
Mhm.
consider that, let's say you did, or let's say you had this job, how would you solve this problem?
Yep.
That's what employers want to know, I think.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I think it's the way you worded it was perfect, because I think sometimes, you hear people say, fake it till you make it. And I don't think that's accurate. I mean, I get the meaning behind it, but I really think it's not about faking it, because what you're saying is look within qualities you have, what you can bring to the table. And, maybe it doesn't, you've never done Word or whatever it may be, but you have all these other things that will, as you said, fill those spots and fill those spaces. So I think that's a great way to describe it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to. We talked about how you like to cook, and that's definitely something that that maybe people would not know about you. But Modern Market, as you said, being part of a restaurant industry, and you're known for that sort of made from scratch fare. So I want to know, is there a made from scratch recipe that you do that maybe is you've made it your own, it's kind of your go-to, people, your family wants to,
Mhm.
have you make that? Is there something like that that you have?
Yeah, there's something that's so simple and I think it's funny, but my family asks for it every single year for the holidays. Just a green bean dish that I make. It's just sauteed green beans, a ton of garlic. And I put pistachios in it to finish it.
Ooh,
Um, but
good.
a little bit of onion and garlic and olive oil and just saute it up. But I keep it pretty clean and simple. But again, every single year, my family seems to ask me to make it. So I do that, but I'll make it for potlucks too, for, work events that we have, and people seem to like it. So, again, it's a simple one, but it seems to be what I'm known for.
That's awesome. Well, I'm curious, when you see recipes, are you one of those cooks? Because, and I find that mostly bakers seem to be in this category, but do you look at a recipe and follow it exactly? Or do you, like for me, I see recipes, and I'm kind of a picky eater. So I tend to, oh, I don't like that. And I make it. So I very much take pieces out of everything and then make my own. I'm curious, are you that cook, or are you more let's follow the recipe like Martha Stewart's, which is very complex? I know she has great recipes, but I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm ever doing all of that. So where do you stand?
I follow the recipe. I am a bit of a rule follower and I like things to be perfect and precise. Once I get comfortable with the recipe, then I start to make changes and I'm like, okay, I could substitute this for that.
Mhm.
But especially with a new recipe, I try to be very, very precise about it. And that's just kind of who I am. I'm, like I said, a bit of a perfectionist. So it's sort of like, oh, 1 teaspoon of this, two of that. I chop it the way they want it chopped. And yeah, hopefully it turns out okay.
Yeah, I'm so I'm like, I don't really know how to chop that way, so I'm just doing this. Or and like definitely with ingredients, because if I don't have it, I'm like, do I really want to go out and buy this? Whatever. And so
Mhm.
it's just, or and then also, as I said, I'm not, there's certain things I know I won't like, but anyway, so yeah, we'd have to be in different kitchens cooking. Would be very different. Keeping with the cooking mode, you guys, a lot of what modern, and I've had a chance to look at the food you guys have, and it looks amazing. Like it really does. And I'm curious, but it's more health conscious. It's very, food
Mhm.
that's good for you. So, is there a go-to sort of food that you would go, that you do, or not even just a food? It could be anything that you do that is good for you, like in your personal life. Is
Mm.
there something that kind of recharges you, or is it maybe it makes you, just relax or just feel better about yourself? Like, is there a go-to, activity or something for you for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I began taking a class years ago, it's an exercise class, um, because I was recommended to it by a back specialist. So I've had back problems my whole life, and she recommended this class. It's based in a movement method called Feldenkrais. People,
A what?
Feldenkrais.
Feldenkrais?
Yeah, it's sort of like, how Pilates is named after Joseph Pilates.
Okay, yes. So
Feldenkrais is a
got
person, yeah. And that's kind of how it all came about. People don't necessarily know about it as much. It's not as popular as yoga or Pilates.
it.
Um,
Example.
yeah, but I have found that it's been extremely helpful, not just for my back. That's why I started doing it, but just mental health and overall well-being. The class I take, it's based in Feldenkrais, but we incorporate a lot of exercise from other outside, sources. So Pilates and yoga and things like that too. So kind of full body experience, but it's really more about functional movement. And so I always like to use the example of, if you're sitting at the gym and you're like lifting a barbell, you might just stand there and lift it straight up and down. Whereas with Feldenkrais, you might actually kind of move your whole body to lift it, so you're kind of like using your whole body to do certain exercises. But after those classes, I feel amazing. I do it every Saturday, and it's just something that I've always done for myself and my mental health, and I love it.
Well, when you say, okay, so it's more functional or functional moving, and when you include Pilates, which, obviously I think everyone knows Pilates, or if there's any yoga type things included, but what do you mean functional? Like when you say it's moving, so is it more by functional? And I'm thinking about my friend who's an occupational therapist. She
Mm.
teaches people how to do things in their daily life. Like, so it's not about, like, physical therapy is, working the muscles, making you better to be, to start running again. Whereas it's making you be able to go to the refrigerator and open something, occupational therapy, or getting into the bathtub. Is that what you mean by functional? Like moving your body the way you normally would?
I mean more like whole body experience in a way. So like the example I use, you might just be standing there working out your bicep. Maybe that's what you're doing. But when you do it with Feldenkrais in mind, you're actually getting movement and exercise in other parts of your body as well, because you're moving all of those parts. Not just straight up and down, like I said, like I think about like a robot, like up and down. But when you're moving like that, it sort of allows you to get exercise in your shoulder or your neck. And then, a lot of times we work on one part of the body and it actually frees up another part of the body. So it's really interesting how that works. And, the whole thing is connected. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's something that I found is quite helpful, especially if you
That
have
helps.
any issues.
Yeah, no, and then if it helps with your back, obviously right there, it makes it. But the fact that, I mean, because I feel like working out does help a lot of people, whatever it may be, to clear their mind, to do things. And like, so Pilates, I really enjoy. Yoga, not so much. I'm not very good at it. But so I think that's all, everyone finds their own little niche. So but I'll have to check that out. I had never heard of
Yeah.
Sheldon Christ. Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
But so in terms of, I also, as I say, I always snoop, and I went to your Instagram page, and the headline, which it said, "As long as I have snacks, all is well." So I want to know, then, kind of sticking with that healthy mode, let's keep healthy. What's
Mm.
your healthy go-to snack?
Healthy go-to snack would probably be, I eat this almost every afternoon, is an apple and almond butter. It's kind of my go-to pick me up in the afternoon when you have that little dip and you get hungry. That's what I tend to eat quite a bit, especially at the office. It's healthy, it's good for you, it has a little bit of protein. So yeah, that's my go-to healthy snack.
Okay, so now on the other side of it, what's your decadent, maybe junk foody kind of snack?
Mhm. Mint chip ice cream.
Oh yeah.
That is my Achilles heel. Yeah, I love sweets. I love chocolate. But yeah, that ice cream it'll hit the spot every time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, all right. I want to sort of end it off with, in terms of where, you talked a little bit up top, part of the way you motivate your, employees is by being out there with them, showing by example. Is there anything else, like when you see, and even yourself, how do you motivate yourself when it's just, maybe it's either things with work aren't going great or getting monotonous? Sometimes that can happen with, when we're doing these jobs day in and day out, a lot of it's repetitive. How do you motivate yourself, your employees, to just kind of again recharge?
Charge. Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story about when I was hired at Modern Market. So it's a short little something, but the subject line of the email I got with my offer letter said, "Help us change the world." And it might seem a little corny to some people, but it's honestly what most of us feel like we're doing at Modern Market. We feel like we are helping change the world. It's in a small way that we can, right? Because we're still a young brand, but we do truly believe that. And so when I, might get a little down or need a little pick me up for myself or for my team, I talk about that quite a bit and what we're actually doing here. It's so easy to get bogged down in marketing and the numbers and the data and that sort of thing. But when you step back and you take a look at what we're actually trying to accomplish here, it's serving healthy food to as many people as possible. That's what we're trying to do. And that's a really amazing thing to be a part of. So we talk about that, and it really energizes everybody again, and it gets people focused on the main important thing and what we're all trying to do.
It
Yeah.
sounds like getting back to the basics almost, like what inspired people to maybe want to be a part of your organization.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all about that. I think that, again, when we're doing interviews with potential candidates and that type of thing, that's what we talk about quite a bit. And that's what people seem to be interested in too, and drawn to with Modern Market is, obviously they're interested in the job itself, but it's also the greater good and what we're trying to accomplish and what Modern Market stands for and what it stands for within the community too that we serve. So it has a reputation for that, is being able to do something a little bit better for the world.
Sounds awesome. Well, it doesn't sound corny. That's very
Yeah.
nice. So we should all do that for our little part of the world. So I think that's great. Beth, thank you so much. It was really so nice to talk with you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it too.
Good. I'm glad. And I thank you for watching. And as always, if you have someone that you want to recommend to me, a woman marketer, brand marketer, that you feel like you want to hear more about, she's so impressive. Everyone should hear about her. Just please let me know. I will do my best to get her. So thank you for watching. And Beth, thanks again.
Thank you.